everybody. On behalf of Authority Magazine, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome with me today, Ginny. Hello, Ginny. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Ginny, I am excited to have you here. We are in the capital of the United States for an exciting event. But before we get to that, let's go back and tell people a little bit about you. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about your childhood and what has brought you to where you are today.
Sure. So I had a really amazing childhood. I lived between Connecticut and New Hampshire. We were just constantly outside playing. We all learned to ski when we were one. It kind of comes in our DNA. So our mom put us on skis about as soon as we could walk. So that's always been part of us. We've always skied all winter long. And actually, when we were kids, everyone else went away on summer holidays, and we went to Chile to go skiing. Our grandmother brought our family every summer to ski in Chile. So that really shaped a lot of my upbringing and who I am today. I actually still compete professionally in half-pipe skiing. So I compete on the World Cup tour for half-pipe skiing.
Okay. Half-pipe skiing. Tell us a little bit about that. Why not regular skiing, but half-pipe skiing?
So I started out in ski racer program as a kid and went up through there till I was about 12. And then my older sister, Jamie, switched to freestyle, and actually her and my mom kind of tricked me into signing up for a mogul competition. They were like, there aren't any other girls and Jamie's lonely, so you have to train with her. And then I did that for 2 days, and they were like, oh, well, we signed you up and paid the deposit, so the competition is tomorrow. Like, okay. I actually liked it, so I also followed her into freestyle, and then I did all the events, and I ended up liking half pipe the most. I grew up as a ballerina, and I think that it translates really well to the spinning and creativeness that you can find in half pipe skiing.
I would have never thought about skiing and creativity going hand in hand, but I guess there is art to it, right?
Yeah, especially in freestyle skiing where it's a judged sport, so you're looking for individuality and what draws attention. There's also like the level of difficulty, of course, but there's a lot more creativity than like in ski racing or one of the other ski events.
Yeah. Jeannie, we are here for a particular event tonight, and you watched your sister go through something pretty terrifying, I would say, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about your view of what happened to Jamie.
Sure. So we were at World Tour Finals in Whistler, Canada, and it was the first year that I got invited, and I was really excited. And I was supposed to compete the next day, but I was watching Jamie compete. I gave her a hug, and she started her run. And from my position, I could see her go off the jump, but I couldn't see her landing. So but once we didn't see her hit the next jump, we knew that something had happened. And we actually were next to the ski patrol, her coach and I, and that we could hear the radio say we need all hands on deck and a helicopter in standby. And so that immediately made me knowledgeable to know that it was a very bad accident, because a normal torn ligament or maybe like a collarbone or something, they just have a ski patrol that takes you away. And so I skied down right away, and Jamie was convulsing on the snow. Her eyes were completely rolled back in her head. She was like seizing almost. And she already, like, all the color had drained from her body. She had blood coming out of her mouth. And she looked like a zombie. Like, it was completely out of like a horror movie. There was no humanity in her body at that point. And then they actually were able to intubate and IV her before moving her, because at that time, Whistler Blackcomb had doctors on hill, which is actually quite rare for ski areas. And since their new ownership has actually stopped that practice, because it was a more expensive practice, but it literally was the first step in saving Jamie's life, was to be able to keep her breathing before moving her at all and stop her body from seizing. And then so a ski patrol manually pumped her breath, and they brought her down and put her in a helicopter and brought her down to the Whistler Clinic. And I wasn't able to go into the helicopter. There wasn't space. So the coach and I and a volunteer took us down the chairlift. I saw Jamie for about 5 minutes in the Whistler Clinic before they were putting her into the helicopter to take her to the Vancouver hospital. We had to get some of our stuff, like our passports and clothes, because it was apparent right away that this was a very serious accident and it had a high chance of claiming her life. So right away, I knew that like I wasn't coming back up to Whistler. I was going to the hospital. And actually during that car ride down, I got a phone call from the hospital, from the social worker, and she was really insistent on getting the contact for our parents and making sure that she was in contact with her parents. And I thought that she was going to tell them that Jamie had died in the helicopter before me. And so I was really strongly like, I'm the one here, I need to know. And finally she was like, the helicopter is just landing, I don't have an update yet, I just need to tell your parents because I need them to know the severity of what's going on. I've actually written a memoir that's unpublished currently about this process, and so it goes really deep into that whole, the first day, the first week in the hospital, how the emotions were, what the prognosis was, the fact that I was the family member there. So when the doctors were starting the conversation about having Jamie be the first person in North America treated with an oxygen and pressure analyzing brain bolt, where her doctor had just come back from Cambridge, England to learn the procedure, I was the first person they talked to. And then my dad actually arrived just before they needed the paperwork signed. So he signed the paperwork on her behalf. But I was 18, and this was a lot of responsibility and a lot of trauma. And it was a lot that happened like immediately.
At the blink of the eye.
Exactly.
So from there to where Jamie is today, and you have watched her every step of the way, and you're seeing everything that you guys are really doing now together.
Mm-hmm.
Comment on that. What has that journey been like?
Yeah, so like I said, the beginning was really hard. But then once she started to wake up and she was awake, it was really fun. She wasn't okay yet. She was still, very physically and cognitively not there, but she was so fun. She was funny and giggly, and she really fixated on Taylor Swift's song Style. And so we had a choreographed routine, and she was like a little kid who wants to play their favorite song on repeat. So we played Style all the time. And yeah, we made up a dance routine to it. We had people visiting in the hospital. I decorated her hospital room with photos. She had a hammock, stuffed animals. We had a service dog, and she was able to come in and do pet therapy with Jamie. And then once Jamie actually was released from the hospital, it started getting a bit harder again, because Jamie felt like she was fine, but she was not. And that first winter, actually, our grandmother got diagnosed with cancer. So my mom was traveling between the two. And when my mom wasn't there, I was the 19-year-old raising a teenager, basically, even though Jamie's my older sister. But the roles really got reversed during that time. I had to take care of her, and I was going back to competing. And we had pets and just a whole family. And so, but it progressively got better. And then the more we stayed involved in the brain injury world, there was a lot of really long-term depressing stories where they were like, we had a concussion or two when we were youth and nobody told us to do anything. So now we're in our 40s or 50s and we get migraines every day and we've lost our job, and just really sad stories. And we were like, that is not the outcome. Like, that is not what we're working for. That's not where Jamie's going to end up. Like, we're going to keep making her recover until she's actually recovered. And we did, and we stayed in contact with her doctor in Vancouver. So we started helping other families in Vancouver. We've done some work with the Brain Injury Alliance of Utah, which is the state we currently live in. And we just every year got better, and Jamie got better. And we wanted to stay involved in brain injury to be able to share this story and share all the different ways that we used integrative medicine to support the Western medicine and to help families, if they just want to text, oh, this happened today, or I'm really annoyed about this, as well as making sure that those caregivers, where this becomes your full-time job in a blink of an eye, have a support system and understand that it's a marathon and they need to take time for themselves. They need to make sure they're eating and sleeping and doing little things that they love, which is I'm a very well-rounded creative person. So still I focus on things that I love and that I can do. I actually love fashion and designing. And so I actually designed and sewed all of my dresses for our screening. So tomorrow night, it'll be a custom dress that I designed and sewed, and it's probably my favorite one so far. I'm really excited about it.
Okay. So you mentioned a couple of projects that you're working on. You guys have the foundation, you have your project, you have your book.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to comment on? You have a lot of projects on your hands.
Yes, I was definitely, I was raised, my grandmother was a journalist, my mother was a teacher, and I was raised to fix the problems I can't accept in the world. I also do climate activism work, and I work with a small country in the South Pacific named Vanuatu that has an initiative being voted on this month at the United Nations to have the International Court of Justice have an advisory opinion on the humanitarian effects of climate change. So I got to go with their delegation to the start of the United Nations in September, as well as Climate Week in New York. So I do that. And then I'm also actually a licensed foster parent and advocate for putting the children first.
Excellent. You briefly brought up the topic of self-care for caregivers, which I think is so important nowadays. Sadly, there's a lot of disease out there, and there is a lot of cognitive disease. There's a lot of physical disability. Since you are a caregiver, what are a few tips you can give to the caregivers to make sure that they stay wholesome so that they can take care of those they love?
Sure. Well, it's kind of like on the airplane, they always say, put on your oxygen mask first. And I know that I've struggled with that, but it is, you can't take care of others if you can't function yourself. So even like the little things, if you like to paint, try to carve out half an hour, maybe starting with just once a week, or noticing like it's fun to put on a movie and have the whole family watch it. And that's actually creating a positive memory, even if you're like, oh, wow, screen time and all this. And yes, with brain injury, there's a certain period where screen time can be very bad for the brain development, but then you get past that. So it's also just looking at the little things, sitting on the grass with the sun shining and being able to take that moment and feel, oh, this feels good. I can understand that for this moment, I can like take a breath. Eating and exercising is a big one as well. And that's actually, our mom is getting her doctorate in mind-body medicine with a focus on brain injury recovery, but also for family caregivers, because you can actually end up with chronic illnesses from the stress of being that support person. So also therapy. I see a therapist, Jamie sees a therapist, a lot of our family sees a therapist. So being involved in therapy can be really helpful. Yeah. And just talking about it, being able to have people in life where you're like, today was bad, but today was good.
Yeah. What is a word of wisdom, a quote of wisdom that you want to share and leave our audience with?
I would say that so much more of the impossible is possible if you go out and work for it and fight for it. I like to say we shouldn't be just anything we want. We should be everything we want, because you can be a professional athlete and a clothing designer. You can be a parent. You can be a business person. We're really in a really interesting part of history where with technology, with travel, there's a lot of things you can do. And there's also a lot of things that need to be improved. And we need people to stand up and make a difference in the world.
Where can people follow your journey?
My Instagram is Jeannie Crane Mosey, and I spell it JeaneeCranemauzy. It's the same on Facebook, and our website is mocrazystrong.org, mocrazystrong.org. And I love it when people reach out if they have things I want to talk about or just want to make a comment.
Connect.
Yeah, I love to connect with people.
Well, appreciate your time, Jenny. Wishing you continued success with everything that you do. And I look forward to celebrating and making history tonight with you.
Thank you. I'm so excited as well.
Can't get enough of those rebellious conversations? Do make sure you subscribe, like, and share with your friends.